Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be doing the ball joints on my IS300. As a lot of you guys know, with the ball joints on the IS300, it's very unpredictable and these things will bust on you, especially if you have 150 to 200,000 miles on the car. And this car, I think, has the original ball joints. I did inspect them when I first got the car and I changed the boots and everything on them. But after seeing all the horror stories and the photos of people losing their ball joints on the freeway and on the road, I decided to pick up a brand new set. So today we're gonna be installing two brand new OEM ball joints on each side of the car. I got these, I think, for like around $80 to $90 each, which is like twice as much as the aftermarket ones, but I needed the OEM ones for my brake upgrade on here because they're the only ones that is gonna clear the calipers. If you guys are new to the channel and you like this content, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. About 90% of you guys watching my videos aren't subscribed to the channel, and when you subscribe, it really helps the channel and the algorithm, and it keeps me making this awesome content for you guys to learn and do stuff on your own. So stay tuned. So I picked up these OEM ball joints. They were like $90 each, which is like twice as much as the aftermarket ones. Like I said earlier, Mevotech makes a really good aftermarket one that everybody uses. Sankai 555 is also a supposed OEM supplier. The Sankai 555 ones aren't exactly the same OEM ones, but they are one of the manufacturers of these supposedly. Then the worst of all the reviews of the name brands, I think a lot of people have issues with the MOOG versions, but I decided to get these, like I said, because they're much slimmer, they're OEM, they're gonna fit the car, and they're gonna clear my brakes. These things come with everything here, including a new castle nut and cotter pin. Here's all the tools you're gonna need for this project. You're gonna need a 19mm to take apart the bottom bolt. You're gonna need this puller here to pop the ball joint at the bottom and also pop the steering knuckle out. You're gonna just need a ratchet to turn this thing over here. You're gonna need a 17mm wrench and socket to take apart the various bolts at the bottom. And that should be all you need. We'll get underneath and I'll show you exactly what we need to do. So we're underneath the car now, and here's what you're gonna have to unbolt. You're gonna have to unbolt your steering rod right here, which is a 17mm. There's a cotter pin there, and you're gonna need that puller to actually pop the ball joint out. You're gonna need that to pop this lower ball joint too once you take the 19mm out. You're gonna need to remove those two 17s right here that keep the whole thing onto the spindle. As you can see, I have the roll center adjusters, RCAs, on my car. If you haven't seen me install that, I have a video on installing that one right there also. It's pretty simple. Just unbolt these two things, install that, and bolt it back and torque it to 80 foot-pounds, I believe. One other thing while you're down here, trying to get that puller in here with the caliper still attached is gonna be a big pain. So what I'm gonna do, I'm actually gonna unbolt the spindle, kind of slide that out of the way, and then I'm gonna get to this once the spindle slide out of the way, and then I could pop it easily without removing the caliper. If you don't do that, then you could just unbolt the caliper, slide it off, and then get it out of the way, and you can pop the steering knuckle off. So to get all these bolts off, you always want to just use a ratchet and just break the bolt open, and then you can shoot it off with whatever power tool you have. You just want to make sure you don't hit it with the impact first, because you might strip the bolt or the head. Lift this thing off of here, slide it out of the way. You don't need to slide all the way out of the way, just enough so you can access the ball joint over here. Once we get over here, just take the cotter pin off. And this one's a 17, so we'll just use a wrench. Might want to get a bungee cord or something, kind of secure this up to your shock so that way it's kind of out of the way, so I'll go grab that now. All right, we got this thing kind of tied up right now with the bungee cord, so it's kind of out of the way. So I'm gonna go ahead and just pop this thing apart. 17, unscrew the castle nut. You don't wanna take it all the way off yet. You just wanna go ahead and get this thing onto here and then pop the thing off. This thing makes popping this thing like simple as hell. It really takes 15 seconds to pop this thing versus doing it the old-fashioned way with a hammer. Popped right there. You're good. So we'll go ahead and take it all the way off now. So I just want to leave it loose for now. I'm going to go ahead and take the bottom one here, take the cotter pin out, Use some pliers, make it easier. I'm gonna have to get a breaker bar to pop this off. Gotta get the iron pipe out, get some leverage. Comes off like nothing there. So we're gonna loosen like we did with the steering thing. And we wanna get this thing over here and then pop this guy off the same way. This one's gonna be a little bit more tricky, I think, just trying to get it around this boot, this lower boot. So this bottom spot's got that aftermarket boot that I put in here last time I inspected this thing and replaced it. So it's a little bit stiffer and harder to get into as far as trying to get something in between here. So I'm gonna have to kind of wedge it up and get this fork down to fit. If this was the OEM boot, it should get in pretty easily. That's how I popped it last time I did this. Once I get that under there, pop this thing off like we did with the steering knuckle. Oh, popped. Easy. So do that. Lift this thing out of the way. Unbolt the 2 bolts. There, slide that baby out and put in the new one. So here's a comparison of the new one versus the old one. As I mentioned while I was taking this apart, I did replace this bushing like 2 years ago when I first got the car with the energy suspension one. I took it apart, replaced that bushing on here. There was really nothing wrong with it. It was just kind of old and deteriorated, so I replaced it with this energy suspension one. It was just a cap on there and the pressure just kept it on. You didn't need to do any of the rings or anything, and it held pretty good. It's the grease that I put in there at the time is still in here, but you can see this thing moves around, works well. At the time, it didn't look like there was anything wrong with the ball joint, so I just played with it and kept it. But then, like I said at the beginning of the video, I've seen too many horror stories now with everybody riding around and then this thing falling out on them. So I decided just to get a new one just to be safe, since I didn't want to end up on the side of the road with my wheel hanging off, potentially just you know, death. You know, when these things pop out, you can really cause some serious damage to your own car as well as others and yourself. All right, so we'll go ahead and get this thing back on. As you can see right here, this thing, the ball joint on the new one is like really tight. A big difference there that you can tell right off the bat. That one that's been on this car for 20 years and 200,000 miles really moves around easily. So this thing is a really good sign there. So we're gonna just go ahead and slide that over, get this back in here. Go ahead and get your castle nut, the brand new one that came with it. Screw it in by hand. Just get it tightened down. And then we'll get the steering into here. We'll get that castle nut on, tighten it down by hand right now, and then we'll torque it once we're ready. Make sure the RCA's pop into the grooves. Go ahead and screw these all in, and then we'll go ahead and torque it down once I look up the torque specs. All right, so I got the torque specs for all of this. So the steering knuckle is gonna be 40 foot-pounds. The 2 RCA roll center bolts right here are 83. And the castle nut for the main ball joint is 91 foot-pounds. So I'll go ahead and just torque these things down right now, make sure everything's nice and tight and we don't have any accidents. Once you torque it, get your cotter pin in here. Always want to go forward to back so that nothing hits it on the highway or anywhere and can knock this thing out. Plus you want to bend this thing down and up anyways with the pliers just to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. I just get some pliers and hammer that in just to make sure it's not going anywhere. But once you bend it, it's usually good. Same with this top one. Good there. Cotter pin in here, front to back. It's good there. So we'll go ahead and get this all buttoned up. I'm gonna do the other side time lapse so you guys can see me do that all in one shot. All right, we got everything back together, torqued down, nice and tight. Everything's good now. Cotter pins are all in. Everything is clean and looks good. This should last another 100,000 or 200,000 miles on these ball joints. You can see my original brakes are kind of whack right now. I'm gonna get back on my 17Z project. I've got everything ready to powder coat, and that's going to be on one of my upcoming videos. And we're going to go ahead and powder coat those things and get them put on the car. And finally, after a year and a half delay on that project, I just kind of quit on it just because of life and everything else. Hey guys, thanks for joining me all the way to the end of this quick video on getting those ball joints installed on the IS300. As you can see, it's a very easy project. You could probably do it in your driveway with a jack and just some hand tools. This is definitely something that you need to do, especially on these 20-year-old cars, especially if no one has ever done the ball joints before. Once you get the car, and if it's lowered and you're slammed or on bags or whatever it is, even more reason to change those ball joints out before they fail. If you guys found this video useful, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to your channel. About 90% of you guys watching the channel aren't subscribed to your channel. It really helps the algorithm when you subscribe to your channel. Remember guys, for all these different projects, whether it's on the cars, in the garage, or on the house, if I can do it, you guys can do it. I want to thank you for watching all the way to the end, and I'll talk to you guys next time.